Hello everyone. For today's video, I will be discussing Mendelian and non-Mendelian inheritance. Mendelian inheritance. Back in 1860s, in an Austrian monastery, there lived in a monk named Mendel, Gregor Mendel. Monks had a lot of time on their hands, and Mendel spent his time crossing pea plants. As he did this over and over and over again, he noticed some patterns to the inheritance of traits from one set of pea plants to the next. Mendel studied the inheritance of 7 different features in peas, including height, flower color, seed color, and seed shape. To do so, he first established pea lines with 2 different forms of a feature, such as tall versus short height. He grew these lines for generations until they were pure breeding, then bred them to each other and observed how the traits were inherited. In addition to recording how the plants in each generation looked, Mendel counted the exact number of plants that showed each trait. Strikingly, he found very similar patterns of inheritance for all 7 features of he studied. One form of a feature, such as tall, always concealed the 4 other forms, such as short. In the first generation after the cross, Mendel called the visible form in the dominant trait and the hidden form the recessive trait. In the second generation, after plants were allowed to self-fertilize, the hidden form of the trait reappeared in a minority of the plants. Specifically, there were always about 333 plants that showed the dominant trait. For every 111 plants, there showed the recessive trait, making a 3:13:13:1 ratio. Mendel also found that features were inherited independently. One feature, such as plant height, did not influence inheritance of other features such as flower color or seed shape. In 1865, Mendel presented the results of his experiments, nearly 30,000 pea plants, to the local Natural History Society. Based on the patterns he observed, the counting data he collected, and mathematical analysis of his results, Mendel proposed a model of inheritance in which characteristics such as flower color, plant height, and seed shape were controlled by pairs of heritable factors that came in different versions. One version of a factor could mask the presence of another version, the recessive form. The 2 paired factors separated during gamete production, such that each gamete, sperm or egg, randomly received just one factor. The factors controlling different characteristics were inherited independently of one another. By carefully analyzing his pea plant numbers, he really good at mathematics. He discovered 3 laws of inheritance. Mendel's law are follows: the law of dominance, the law of segregation, and the law of independent assortment. The law of dominance: in a cross of parents that are pure of 4 contrasting traits, only one form of the trait will appear in the next generation. Offspring that are hybrid for a trait will have only the dominant trait in the phenotype. Law of segregation: only one of the 2 gene copies present in an organism is distributed to each gamete that it makes, and the allocation of the gene copies is random. When an egg and a sperm join in fertilization, they form a new organism, whose genotype consists of the alleles and contained in the gametes. Law of independent assortment states that the alleles of 2 or more different genes get assorted into gametes, independently of one another. In other words, the allele a gamete receives for one gene does not influence the allele received for another gene. Non-Mendelian inheritance. Some traits exhibited a kind of blending where the offspring of organisms with two different traits didn't have one or the other form from the parents. They had something that was sort of in the middle. This implies that certain alleles aren't dominant over the other ones. Rather, they share roles like harmonious friends. Some traits seem to be controlled by complex inheritance patterns. We know that traits can be controlled by more than one gene or genetic material way, passed down from parent to offspring in different ways than what Mendel predicted with his law of segregation. Finally, non-Mendelian inheritance patterns might just be caused by mistakes in reproduction. There are a ton of different processes all happening together, like coordinated dance, and all it takes is one thing to trip or mess up, and the whole thing goes haywire. There's so many things that could go wrong that frankly it's wonder that we all end up here in one piece. That would be all. Thank you for watching.